I'll tell you what, man. You should tell your editor not to put up the word armchair warrior while your fucking whole body is on screen because it just hits. It hits so hard. It is the perfect image. This is an obliteration. It's in your video. Because you have to make the whole video to just beat this freeze frame. This freeze frame annihilates you. You are carrying around a goofy ass two-bladed sword just looking like mad out of shape. If you have any familiarity with Westside Tyler Live and my channel, of course you have come across my coverage of one Shad M. Brooks. He is the proprietor of Shadiversity, a channel of, 1.69 million, 69, LOL, 1.69 million subs. He is also one of the internet's fastest rising stars in the lolcal community. He is embarrassing for his political takes. He is embarrassing for his AI takes. He is embarrassing for his creativity takes, his media takes. And today, now that I've basically covered all of those other four before, we are going to watch Shad basically put what is in my heart the final nail in the cringe coffin by proving he has unfathomably cringe martial arts takes as well. If you are not familiar with the word HEMA, familiarize yourself with it right now. HEMA is an acronym that stands for Historical European Martial Arts. It's a word I did not know before I started this channel, although I had heard it sometimes. Now I am fully familiar with it because about a third of my entire community are people that enjoy HEMA or HEMA-related activities like sword collecting and knowing abouting. HEMA, as Historical European Martial Arts, is a mix of different disciplines from what I understand. I won't try to get into the entirety of it. You can find out more about it from creators I will literally be turning videos on of or watching videos from in just about 5 seconds here. So what you really just need to understand is it's basically modern sword fighting that is not necessarily Olympic style rapier and sword fighting. Okay. People will sometimes put on whole things of armor. Sometimes they'll don cutting suits similar to like kendo in Japanese martial arts. Sometimes they'll wear like literal replica fucking Teutonic Knight tower helm, frog helm, whatever the fuck. Stuff and go and fight each other in the Scottish Highlands for YouTube views. It ranges from very serious to very, very silly as far as the sport itself goes, because it is, despite having deep roots, fairly new and a thing that got kind of exploded, from what I understand, by the internet. People just being like, oh, fuck, you can actually fight with swords and armor on? That's cool. And so there's a ton of sub-disciplines. There are a ton of different people that compete in it. There are even, I would say, a ton of different definitions for what does and doesn't count as European, historic European martial arts. So I am not going to try to establish a definitive definition. If you are upset about the definition I provide, please go ahead down into the comments and provide your own. If you are a HEMA creator and you want to provide any corrections, go ahead. Do it. I will address anything that pops up because I might misspeak about stuff tomorrow. Because I am going to go in on not necessarily HEMA itself, but like the concepts of martial arts relative to this thing. Because HEMA does, and this is the one thing I should hammer home, straddle the line with a wide stance between highly unserious hobbyists and extremely dedicated, talented athletes and martial artists. These people all, unfortunately, regardless of merit, have to occupy the same space because there just has not been enough scrutiny and attention on HEMA from within and from without to create the sort of lattice work of taste and history that separates the wheat from the chaff. HEMA is very similar to MMA in its infancy, so to say, even though it's been around for a long time, as far as having a lot of eyeballs on it and as far as approaching large scale participation, having a lot of people being involved in it, and having basically like definitive heroes. It is in that stage. Think like around MMA, just before MMA 1. So you will see combinations of people that go into the same ring, so to say, not necessarily fighting, but like fighting for attention, that are very reminiscent of seeing someone like Anderson Silva go up against like an overweight guy with a single boxing glove on one hand. It is that. If you understand what I'm talking about and you're a fan of fighting, just know that because someone says they're in HEMA, even if they're respected and have a lot of weight to throw around in it, does not mean that they have any skill. The fake kung fu, the Steven Seagal vibes are thick throughout HEMA. That is not to say it should not be taken seriously or that it's not a real martial art. I am not and will not make those points because I don't believe in them. There are just a lot of unserious actors who will make this look silly. When I'm making fun of them, I am not making fun of the sport. Understand, that is my entire breakdown of this, and we are going to start with the video that incited this all, so to say, from an individual named Sellsword Arts, a channel of 1.22 million subs. I watched a bunch of this guy's content earlier today, and I can say while he might not be the tippity tip top martial artist, so to say, because it's kind of hard to grade. I would have to like literally see him fight. I will say that this dude walks the walk and talks the talk as an athlete and as an aficionado of understanding, holding, and interacting with the weapons that he has around him. We're going to go ahead over to the thing. I'm going to let him talk for himself. And this is going to kick off the end of tonight's very, very long segment, or the beginning of tonight's very, very long segment that will end the night. Take it away.
We're discussing the current state of sword media online. If you've been on YouTube, TikTok, or any other social media platform, you probably understand that
By the way, Armchair Warriors versus True Swordsmanship is the most Shadiversity bait title that maybe has ever existed in the history of titles or Shadiversity. It's like perfect. It's a summoning circle drawn with nothing but virgin blood.
the conversation about swords and swordsmanship is mostly dominated by pop culture, fantasy, anime, video games, and things like that. And that's not necessarily bad, it's what the people want to see, but the problem is that's kind of all you can find. Yes, there are some amazing people doing some historically relevant and, tactically correct sword stuff online, but they're few and far between, and realistically, they're not very—
I'm probably going to let this guy talk throughout most of this, so I will have long pauses in me saying anything, but just to like give him due to his own I gotta say, pausing, the drip on this guy is fucking insane. After having basically the only person I've really been seeing in HEMA, because I'm not particularly interested in it, not like it's disinteresting, it's just not the thing that I'm hyper fixated on at the moment. Don't worry, it's me, not you. I've only seen like Shadiversity and his peasants, and so they have the just worst LARPer vibe ever, but my man here is dripped. He is busted faucet dripped, bro. Insanity. Absolutely ripped. The fucking this, I don't know what this like tassel thing is called that's on some people, but every time I see one of these, yes. If you have the build and the dexterity to fucking make this thing float around when you move, like your Enzo fucking Auditore di Firenze, money, drip king. This dude deserves to wear a fucking assassin's cloak just for having good posture and being profoundly fucking dripped out right now.
Very popular channels. I think that we're one of the more popular channels that does a lot of fencing stuff. And really the reason that we're popular is because we also do some of the silly stuff like memes and things like that. If we just did historical swordsmanship, we wouldn't be nearly as popular.
Vampire fighting character, hundo.
People don't seem to find it as enjoyable as they do, you know, anime and stuff like that.
I haven't gotten to the part of Baldur's Gate 3 yet where I meet the rest of Cazador Czar's vampire progeny, but I would have to assume that one of Astarion's progeny brothers has to dress like this.
And I find that to be a shame.
Oh, wait, it's him.
But today I want to talk to you guys about what makes good sword content and who you should and shouldn't listen to and why.
I am going to speed him up just a touch. This is not a disrespectful
I don't think I need to say this,
up.
but I'm going to say it anyway. Anime, video games, pop culture, and all those things are not accurately representing swordsmanship. It's cool, it's fun, and it's enjoyable to watch, but
actually,
that's not the way that swords have actually been used. But because most popular content creators who do things about swords are courting that audience, they tend to couch things in terms of those anime techniques or things like that. How many videos have you seen kind of breaking down video game sword fighting and things like that? It's interesting, it's fun to watch, but the conversation is dominated by that, to the point where it's really hard to find realistic swordsmanship unless you know where to look. The other issue is that there are very few people who are popular swordsmanship creators who do a lot of fencing. And it's integral to fence to understand how.
By the way, watch this actual video. I know I'm letting him talk because I just agree with him.
Lack a true representation of the art.
When I just agree with somebody, I don't pause it at all.
Doing cool choreography, and there's nothing really wrong with that, like I said before, and I'm going to say that over and over again in the video. But it is what dominates the conversation, and we really lose the reality of how these things would have worked. And I find that, honestly, the stuff that we make just to be cool isn't nearly as interesting as the stuff that is realistic, because the realistic stuff is really cool. One of the biggest problems with this is, well, it's difficult.
It's just called a sash, but the man's rocking it. Yeah.
It is a skill. It is a martial art. It is a art that we pursue through our entire lives. It's not something that you...
I'm going to articulate something right now that's going to be the beginning of a point that I'm going to get to 100 times tonight. But I want you to pay very strong attention to how this guy's legs and shoulders look relative to each other at any given time. If you don't know anything about fighting, I'm going to teach you one thing tonight, and it's going to be how to find somebody that, even if they're not going to be a pro-grade fighter, you can say, oh, this dude probably knows how to scrap at least a little bit, or at least the part of it of not getting hit. This guy's got perfect standing posture. Just great. It's probably not something he's really working hard to do. If you exercise your body and your muscles are like strong, stretched, supple, and you take care of yourself, you will naturally start standing the correct way, because it's the best way to do all the things that your athletic body will enjoy. The contrapposto sort of stance on his back foot, very loose, like a side kind of carry with that sword. This dude could move right now. If I threw a rock at him, he could probably hit it. Like, he would be stunned, but he could probably hit it. Just watch how he balances on his feet and how he moves around for the rest of this. It will be important later in the video.
You just get. And so to actually be good at fencing, you have to dedicate a lot of time to it.
Hold on, I train Muay Thai and my posture is absolute garbage. I'm like, it's because you train Muay Thai. You guys fucking walk around. It's fucking Muay Thai. It's the one sport. You guys literally hunch to kick people's fucking teeth through the back of their head. It's the one sport you shouldn't have brought up. Well, yeah, if I'm Muay Thai, I kind of have a bad posture. Dude's walking around like this. Closing the door.
You're also a YouTuber creating a lot of content.
I will never be afraid of any martial art as I am afraid of Muay Thai.
Media like anime, video games, and things like that, you don't have as much time to dedicate to getting good at the real thing. And so a lot of people who are popular and making popular stuff about swordsmanship don't actually fence. And that leads to a fundamental misunderstanding of how these things work, which leads to experiments and demonstrations and videos about swords and swordsmanship.
A lot of bad postures from folks that have weak back muscles, 100%.
And not necessarily intentionally so, but they are. And the question arises, why is this important? we're not using swords to fight anymore.
Tyler,
so
did you
why
do any
does it
McMath?
matter
You
if
have
our
to.
media and everything else is totally inaccurate?
Terrible.
Well, the real answer is it doesn't, but it's just kind of stupid to be misinformed. I get a lot of comments in my comment section saying so-and-so did an experiment and it proves X, Y, Z.
Also, I should add to this that this guy's not just a martial artist. I think he's got, if not a gymnastics background, I would be stunned to find out he doesn't know gymnastics. I saw some of his stuff where he does stunt work and shit. I think he just has a really good, he probably moves everything. Generally, by the way, if your posture is fucked up, this is just good information. One of the first things, if it's back posture, I can't really show this on camera, but start practicing, lean over, right? Like with your hands on your knees. There we go. And try to focus on rolling your hips back and forth relative to your rib cage, right? So your spine's going to go like this, back and forth, and work on just that and teach yourself how to stretch it and move. And then once you do that, learn how to make yourself rotate your rib cage back and forth over the top of your abs. And then when you stand up, try to keep your rib cage aligned with your hips so that instead of standing like this, you're standing more like this. Engage your actual abs, even if you don't have them like visibly. Try to engage your abs and like adjust your hips while you're standing up. You don't have to like be a weirdo at Kroger or anything, so that you can actually feel like a little bit of the stretch in your back. And that can kind of get you on the path to understanding where your hips should be relative to the ground. And it can kind of like unfuck a little bit of your posture, just having that brain muscle connection that you might not have ever established. Even if you're good at like wrestling and shit, you're like using your back, but you're not using it because you don't do like certain types of moves that your body needs to like maintain a strong core. So just a thing that you should try. And then for workouts, deadlifts, of course, and like good back stretches. But one of the best things that you can do are the lifts. Fucking like any lift that does like the chain breaker movement. So, straight down, arm pulls, rows are fucking great. And then if you want one that really kind of works a lot of the little muscles, get like a 15-pound. If you've never done this, get a 5-pound weight, super small. Take a bench that goes down, up and down like this, drop it to 45 degrees, lay forward on it so that your face is on the bench. Keep your back straight with a little bit of an arch, and then do back shoulder flies. Like just like this. You think you're strong, and then do those with 5 pounds and like 4 sets of 12 if you can get it, and you will be like, oh, okay. But a lot of it comes from not just strength, but like a lot of your ancillary muscles and your rotator cuffs and shit. They all need to get in there too. And then if you do other things like shrugs and shit, that can help. Sorry.
And when I look at the experiment, I can see all the problems with it and how it wasn't set up in such a way to accurately represent the way that these weapons would work. Maybe they were using, weapons that weren't up to snuff. Maybe their technique wasn't very good. Maybe they just had a misunderstanding of how fencing works. And now I have to deal with those comments. So maybe this is a selfish video. Maybe this is a video that it's my personal pet peeve. But I do believe that accurately understanding the way that swordsmanship
Michael,
works
I see your comment,
and
and
worthwhile.
yes,
And it
and
might
that will
not
come
be
into this.
crucial for every single piece of sword media to be accurate, but it's something that I think that we should understand and have a deeper,
I cannot focus on chat right now because I have to do this because you guys are making good points and these are all accurate. If you want,
So
there's a lot of good advice
experiments
happening in chat
on YouTube a number of
regarding
different
back health.
times. There's been quite a few content creators who have tested things out. We've done it. We did the Great Reverse Grip experiment. We started to do some spinning experiments. We've done certain situational things, and we always give you kind of the way that we're testing things. Now, I admit that sometimes in the past I've done an experiment and then I've learned things later and I've gone back and corrected myself, which is crucial. If whoever you're watching is not able to correct themselves and say they were wrong when they learned something new, they're not worth watching.
Okay,
But a lot of these
so
experiments that I
this
see
is
are
kind
done
of a
with,
personal
foam
attack,
swords
and I don't really
exclusively, or they're not
appreciate
geared
it.
up, or they're done
Who is he
in kind of
talking about?
situations where there's very, limited testing circumstances, or maybe they're testing for too broad of a thing. And you can kind of watch a video, and if you use common sense, you can see the pitfalls of an experiment. I'm sure there's some experiments that we've done that aren't ideal. And those are things I want to go back and I want to fix and I want to look at. The best experiment or exploration of a technique is done in full gear with steel swords, because that's the closest that we can get to replicating the way these things would have actually been done. When we do it in low gear or no gear or with foam swords, every single one of those is a compromise that's letting us not do this to the fullest extent.
The personal attacks are
For
continuing.
safety's sake, the performance of the weapon, or you name it, all of those things detract from the validity of an experiment that's being done. It's crucial for our viewers to be critical of the experimenter or the presenter. You shouldn't just take everything.
Shad's got that
with a grain of
Timu
salt,
Gambison,
including
shut
me.
your
I've done
fucking
experiments
mouth.
before where maybe I didn't have the proper testing procedures, or maybe I didn't have a crucial piece of evidence or information, and that makes my experiment invalid. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I did one a while back where I said that leg hits are bad and they don't work, and then I started training with somebody who showed me exactly how you can do valid leg attacks, and so I changed my mindset and I made a video about it. I called myself out. And I've done that a number of times. And anybody worth their salt should
absolutely
be able to do that.
based self-improver.
We used these foam greatswords, and like I said earlier, foam is not steel, so it wasn't a completely valid experiment to show one-to-one how these things would have worked. But we also said that caveat in the video. From the beginning, we laid out the idea that this was not an experiment to show exactly how greatswords would have been used in crowd control. It was a thought experiment because we couldn't accurately represent how greatswords would work because it's too dangerous to fence full force with steel greatswords. So we had to make a compromise there if we wanted to do the experiment at all. When a presenter gives you that information, when they give you that caveat, you can trust them a little bit more. And I realize it might seem like I'm just talking myself up right now, but what I'm trying to do is give you a baseline of what you should expect from a valid experiment. If there are caveats or if there are restrictions to the experiment testing process,
oh, hey, we cracked 300 for the first time. Thanks, everybody.
And not just glossed over. So how do you, the viewer, know when a presenter is worth listening to? Well, we've already talked about a couple of things, but there's some other things you should be watching for. If they're talking about how to use a sword, they should use a sword. They should fence. Not everybody has to go to a tournament and win gold to be worth listening to. I fence and train under a number of different people who don't compete in tournaments because they don't like to, but they're still amazing instructors and fencers. No, they have to do the art. If you don't do the art, you cannot talk about how to do the art. Now, there are people who are historians who don't fence, and they have valid insights about
what
the
I'm trying to do is imply Shad
they
is
don't
an
have an
idiot.
understanding of how they would have been used. You cannot understand how these things would have been used.
This is a no
just
notes
by
moment.
studying
I'm sorry,
books.
I don't have anything
You
to
have
say
pick one
because
up,
this is just
and
accurate.
You have to do it, and preferably you should do it with steel and full gear. Now, because HEMA and fencing are not as popular as anime and fantasy and things like that, it can be hard to find legitimate swordsmen online to follow and watch content from. So I've done that for you, and
What is
I
it?
have
What does
found
legitimate
a number
mean?
of different channels who do awesome swordsmanship that's based in reality.
Dude,
These
you
are
know
people
he fucking went and just double checked this. Left someone out. I don't, maybe there's someone who has I don't know a few more video. This got 90 subscribers.
who actually fence. They practice the
my
art.
shit's
You can go
breaking.
check them out. They're awesome. And I'll say right off the bat, we're not going to agree on everything. They might say things that contradict things that I say, and I might say things that contradict things that they say. But that
We're at the end here. I can actually answer. Mark Digital, love your work, man. I came from Shad's audience. Whoop. Two, originally, just wondering, why is all this sword stuff a bit of focus for you? Is it mostly because of Shad's terrible AI stuff? No. That just basically that actually wasn't even AI. AI is not what introduced me to Shad. It was his terrible writing. He was talking about like writing advice, and then I saw it like copied. Oh, thank you very much. Oh no. Thank you. We're in the middle of a segment. Thank you very much.
The light.
God. I got into his stuff because somebody shared a terrible, they shared him sharing his terrible writing on Twitter. And it was one of my first videos. It's the one where he's like, I've been practicing the sword instead of writing, my ladies. It's the first video that ever did good on this channel. And then I found out that he was into the AI art, which I was already starting to get pissed off about because a person that was on the same network as me was using it to promote their show. And I was mad as fuck at them, but I couldn't necessarily attack them over it because they're on the same network as me. That might actually not be the case anymore. But then, I kind of like, then people are like, well, if you think his AI takes are bad and you've read a little bit of his reading, did you know that there's a book? And I was like, there's not a fucking book. And there was a whole book. And so it was just a series of terrible AI things. And then his whole book. And I was like, well, this dude is just a charlatan all the way through. And then this came up, and I was just, I've been actively trying not to really like cover his stuff, because Shadiversity is himself not interesting at all. Like, he's a boring person because he's not as talented as he thinks he is. He's not good at writing. He's really not good at almost any of the things he says he's good at. I'll just leave it there, except for having a large YouTube channel, which is fine. But I love martial arts. I like I'm not in them or anything, but I love how they work. As a writer myself, I like to try to write some stuff that's in like fictional universes where people have sword fights. And so one of the reasons I even knew who he was before, because I was like, oh, is this the sword, the back sheath guy? Oh, cool. Like, that's neat. Was because I came across him while I was researching rapier fighting, which I now know like a Dunning-Kruger's worth amount of, you know what I mean? And so when this came up, people were like, oh, there's another controversy between him. And I was like, if it's like the Scalagram thing or whatever, I just don't fucking care. But I checked out this guy's video because he was, I was like, who is the dude? And I watched him, and then I saw the points he's actually making, and I was like, oh, fuck. I'm going to watch a little bit of Shad's response, and I was like, okay, yeah, I've got to cover this, because now it's also going to let me talk a little bit about HEMA as well. And charlatans. Charlatans is my favorite subject. I'll only talk about each one time, how they're a charlatan. But with Shad, he just finds new ways to be a charlatan every fucking month. I swear to God. He's just got a whole bag of dicks, fucking pulling them out bit by bit. What Scalagram thing? Oh, from like months ago. Or am I fucked up? I might mean Schola Gladatoria. I can't keep all these guys' names together. Whichever one's name is Matt, they had like a little pissy piss fight. It's when I found out about, when I discovered Metatron and I did the dramatic reading of his tweet before I'd ever heard his voice, and everyone's like, he's like a little tweety Italian guy. And I was like, no, he's the voice I gave him. So no, this is really, really interesting me for this specific reason.
And the last thing that I want to say is, it's not bad to love fantasy and anime and video games and things like that. I love them, I play them, I watch them. And I don't even get mad when a character does reverse grip in some silly fantasy series, because it's fake and it doesn't matter. The issue is, people have a hard time differentiating between that fantasy and the reality of how these things would work, because they just don't have enough exposure to them. But if you watch good content, you're critical of the presenter, you understand how experiments are formulated, and you check out awesome sword channels, you can learn more about how these things are actually used, and that'll lead to you enjoying swords and swords media even more.
Mm-hmm. I agree with everything this guy says. This is not like a deep attack, all right? First off, nobody was named, but the fact that you know who he's talking about completely off rip the whole time is hilarious. Just off fucking rip, funny as fuck. And that's not his fault. It's fucking Shad's fault for being like a fucking absolute goof. The big problem with Shad is that he's a charlatan and overly serious. If he just did that and wasn't so especially self-serious, everybody would be fine with it, except for the typical amount of Twitter trolls, YouTube trolls that are just mean to anybody about anything, right? If you just make stuff, people are going to be dicks. But people would be okay with it. But for some reason, it's critically important to him that he be 100% right about it, while simultaneously being completely fucking unwilling to prove that he knows what he's talking about anything. Like a guy that has the quantity and the intensity of disagreements with other people that Shad has on the internet about things that he says he takes extremely serious and they're very, very important to him, is like, but he won't go and like fucking scrap about it, is crazy to me. Like, you could just shut the fuck up and people would stop making fun of you. Or you could go and like either learn from your mistakes and change, or prove people wrong. But somehow he manages to say dumb things and then keep himself in a holding pattern by never changing who he is. Like his positions to a way like where he's actually fucking holding a dub at the end. Like you could just go and duel somebody. It's a fucking fight. If I was talking about boxing every night on here, and I was just like, Oscar De La Hoya's fighting style is stupid as shit. Oh my god! Like a great example. This is a great terrible point to make. Like, if you guys ever seen him fight, like he like hit a guy and then like he's just swinging more where the guy was, but like the dude already fell down. He just seems like he's just swinging like crazy. Like he doesn't even look like he's aiming. Like if I was making that point, by the way, anybody who knows Oscar De La Hoya or boxing and is like a fan of it, just furious. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they don't care at all. But that's just the worst point to make. The guy just, when you throw combos, you commit to the combo because it's a chess thing, basically. And so if you knock a guy out, you still just throw the rest of the combo because your body's already going to do it. That's a whole other discussion. But if I was making that point, and I had a YouTube channel where I talked about Hajime no Ippo all the fucking time and like Dragon Ball Z, and I was just like, I don't think Goku knows how to throw a punch. Also, Oscar De La Hoya's fucking fighting technique could use a little bit of polishing. And then actual boxers were like, hey, dude, why don't you come and show us in a friendly sparring match? You don't even have to fight. Just let me see you do bag work. Let me literally just watch you do some bag work to see if you know what you're talking about. And then, like, you not only can't do that, but you don't, like, the guy can't even wrap his wrists. It's wild. And the crazy thing about Shad is the more I look into him, the like deeper it gets. It's just like he doesn't know anything. Here we go. This is Sellsword Arts. This is him and his friend.
Across the internet and beyond, we see a lot of debate over who would win with rapier versus longsword.
This is them scrapping a little bit. You got a rapier guy versus a longsword dude.
Fire. That's
a really heavy rapier, by the way, too. That is not like a competition, I don't think. Ooh, nice.
Yeah. It is hard. It's not easy. Not enough.
This is kind of fucking sick, you know what I mean? Like, if you had better camera angles and shit, I would film this.
Me too. Double.
Okay, so those are even just fencing terms, which I was learning today. In fencing, to score, like in fencing, you have to hit the other person without basically getting hit yourself. Otherwise, it's a double, right? They cancel each other out. If both people get a point, then nobody gets a point because you can trade. You know, it's in FPS terms, they did a trade. They traded. And so, you know, you can hear these guys, they're breathing hard. But most importantly, and I think the best thing about this is Sellsword is being vulnerable as an expert in his field, which is the most crucial thing, I believe, for any person who's an expert to do. This is the same thing as like a professor giving a dissertation on a subject that they've been studying. He's out here. He's been telling you about sword techniques and tactics and like doing a bunch of those. But now you can see, does this guy actually know what he's talking about? He's out here. He's fighting. He's taking some L's on camera. This is a long shot. He's not trying to fucking throw in a bunch of editing. And they're not doing goofy little weird breakdown. Oh, yeah, but yeah. You know, they're not doing any of that fucking horse shit in standing around, which we will see in videos to come. It's very kinetic, very active.
You went between my armpit. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Literally, there's good sportsmanship on display. This is just great content. We don't really need to watch any more of it. But now that you guys have seen it, maybe you're starting to get what I'm talking about. But also, one last thing I want you to see. And I want you to watch how they move when they're doing strikes. This guy right here with this rapier, it looks just like all of the Olympic guys I was watching fight. This dude's like picture perfect as far as I know. And I am a lay person as far as this is concerned. But I want you to watch their feet when they're moving.
Did I get enough there?
You brushed across my face. Since it's my
Let's get a nice big exchange. This is a good one. They're moving around a bunch.
You want me to do the same?
Okay, do what you're doing.
Okay.
This.
Watch their feet, especially, yeah, this is good. He's turning. Watch how his feet move.
Got me.
Until he takes a hit, they've got good spread a lot of balance, and this dude especially. This dude's, I think, really pro. I was gonna say, I have like Sellsword Arts could more than likely beat me in a sword fight. I wouldn't make the $1,000 bet I made against Shad, but I can see the gaps in his technique as a fighter, but he's probably fucking phenomenal for doing any sort of like choreographed stuff and stunt shit, which I've seen him do. He's probably phenomenal. This guy right here is good. This guy's really good. His feet are apart. He bounces, and he doesn't do the one thing that every boxer will point out, any fighter really, that is like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. He doesn't cross his feet when he's sidestepping, which you'll see people do it because they see it in movies, and they'll cross their whole legs. When your legs are together, they're at their most mobile, right? Your legs are like this because they're balanced, like right around to like out here. Hold on, if I can do like this. So when your legs are like this, you're kind of your most mobile. You can kind of wiggle your shoulders a little bit, right? And you can bounce. You can move your leg because either leg can take the weight and then bounce. When your legs are further apart, they're what you call loaded or preloaded. They have more strength. You have less overall mobility. Your mobility is going to be limited to above your waist, but that's where you get the power for strikes and the for rotation and for reach. This is true in every martial art, basically, with like subtle differences, and that difference that's going to be present is probably what the entire martial art is based around. And it's because human bodies just always work the same. That it, like, in a fundamental way, don't get into pedantry, but they work the same way. So when you want to move as a person and prevent yourself from tripping, give yourself the most access to switching your stance from wide to skinny to either be mobile or to step back and do those drops. You saw when he's attacking, he had that nice big front foot. Waka! So he could get all of that reach. And also, when you bend yourself down like that and lean, you actually, because of the magic of mathematics, you get like an extra fucking like 4 inches or some shit on the end of a sword strike when you get really down low, pointing like that. Always pay attention. If anyone ever tells you anything ever about fighting and you watch them spar or you watch them trying to demonstrate shit and they start crossing their legs up, if they start walking on their heels, doing a lot of big heel leading techniques, not when they're walking around like this, when they don't have any bounce in their shoulders, if they don't bend their knees, if their hips always seem really, really stiff and very front facing or very side, like the hips always tend to just follow their heels and their whole body will move offline, that person is a bad fighter. Probably terrible, right? You can have some fucked up footwork, but footwork is where it all starts. This is an inarguable fact. As far as I know about every single martial art that basically fucking exists where you could reasonably go and actually beat somebody else up. Because you are a slave to gravity. Gravity pushes you down. So the first thing that you ever do when you move your body at all is you rely on whatever's touching the ground to start propulsion. If you want to throw a punch, you're moving your feet. You might not even think about it, but you're moving your feet. That punch needs to travel down your arm all the way from your hips, which are the real powerhouse of movement, and all of that hip movement comes from the placement of your feet. You're dodging on your hips. Your side-to-side movement, your ability to place an attack, all of that comes from hip movement. All of that hip movement comes from knowing how to place your feet. Watch when I say watch this dude, when he sets up his strikes, especially here, watch his feet and how he works.
Oh man, I thought I had that.
He has to cross a little bit, and that's just this guy fucking putting him into a bad position. Also, he's stuck against the wall. But do you see how he keeps his feet? Watch how light they are. He's really good too. He's stand switching and stuff. But watch.
I said I'd do it.
Boom. Big jump. Do you see what I'm talking about? All that power, all of that energy comes from those movements. And do you see when they're demonstrating their techniques, even after he was done, they are moving their entire bodies, even in small ways, to try to be like, okay, this is how my whole body remembers. You don't throw a strike like this, or by like, it's their whole fucking body is getting into it, and they're doing big dodges and shit. So if you watch people's feet, I swear to God, Watch people's feet. You can tell if they know what the fuck they're doing or not, and how practiced they are. If they have a good, solid, like healthy stance, and you can tell them like they seem like they're balanced even when their legs are together. That's a person that is at least focused on like movement to some degree in just their natural, like how they keep their body healthy and how they like interact with the world. It is crucial. Now we are going to watch a video from Shad M. Brooks. The decrease in authority. Just clicking off the last video to go to this one is like a gut buster. You know what I mean? It's not even with martial arts. It's the same with sports. It's with everything. Every act of movement begins with your foot placement, and you have to do it. If you're a quarterback in football, when you move, you don't cross your legs. When you are playing basketball, you don't cross your legs. I've never played any of your European sports, but I'm going to assume rugby players have to take heavy hits and they have to change real quick. They probably do their fucking absolute best to keep a good shoulder wide stance and not cross their legs unless that's like the specific, I have to do this to do thing, you know? Constant. So we switch over to our friend. The canvassing stays on.
For the most part, throughout its entire history, has...
Is it not just the moment when you're watching like a part of Game of Thrones or something and you're like, oh man, these guys are so fun. This fucking like young person that fights for a living is so fucking cool. And then we've got to cut to, bring me the breastplate, Stretcher. My cunt wife, bring me another bottle of a... Literally just the aged and clueless king. I know like Shad and guys like him, like they opine on like a long day, like a long gone day and stuff. Like, I would be a king in ancient Europe. It's like, dude, every one of your children would be just trying to figure out a way to poison you every day. You just got that build. You got that I cut off 2 of my wife's heads and the third one has fucking just all the belladonna in my wine every morning.
pretty much been a really supportive and collaborative community. We have responded to back and forth.
This is, by the way, if you're not watching directly, this is Shadiversity. I'm going to give you the visual cues. Shadiversity, Shad M. Brooks, heavy-built Australian dude, is walking around with 2, I think these are called arming swords. I saw something else, but they look like, they're basically super basic-looking European swords, like fucking from The Sword in the Stone. They are connected with a piece of slotted... I think it's like a piece of L bend, 90-degree bent, slotted steel stock that you would use to like build a server rack or something. He has stuck the hilts of both of them in there, and I think just like taped the fuck out of the hilts of these to the steel stock, which is fucking awesome.
Time to time, disagreeing, but one of the kind of tones that you'll notice through most of these disagreements was an acknowledgement that we still like each other, even not like, we respect each other, content we're making, and we kind of just want to add to the discussion, even if we're vehemently disagreeing. And we've been doing this for a while, so much so that things do evolve. There's been some falling outs. Matt Easton disassociated with me because I have very religious and conservative viewpoints I share on Night's Watch. Scarlegrim doesn't like me or our content, but something that we've never done.
This, I've like watched a lot of British TV shows, and this is like one of those weird ones where it's like they're kind of trying to shoot it like it's like The Office or something. You know what it is? This is the kind of conversation that Frank Underwood has with the camera before he pushes a reporter in front of a train. That's what this vibe is. He's talking to a camera that's not supposed to be there, but obviously is. That's what this is. He's Frank Underwood. This
is... openly say you shouldn't watch anyone else's content, because I still believe, even with our disagreements, we understand that we all, and I know I certainly believe this, that we all contribute positive, beneficial things to this community. Now, by the way...
You gotta fucking name what the thing is. Because we all just watched Sellsword, all right? He seems informative. He's in fucking... He seems like he's in a good shape as an athlete in a sport that he enjoys. Which is what I would expect. I watch boxers, and they're all like in pretty goddamn good shape, and they walk around and they punch bags. which is what I would expect from somebody that's talking about fighting. That's you know, if you're built like you're supposed to be sitting on a set with a bunch of like Marvel memorabilia behind you while you go do that joke from the old Red Letter Media, you know, wow, Dave, wow.
I'm actually probably even closer with some other members.
Also, he did not say to not watch the content. He said to watch about who you watch to learn from stuff. Like keep an eye on who you learn from and make sure that you listen to other people as well.
This standard that has been maintained, this kind of respect and desire to build the community, has been really beneficial and positive, and something that I want to continue. But this is also why the recent video that Sellsword Arts released is particularly troubling, because in this video, not only
I'll tell you what, man, you should tell your editor not to put up the word armchair warrior while your fucking whole body is on screen, because it just hits. It hits so hard. It is the perfect image. This is an obliteration. It's in your video. Because you have to make the whole video to just beat this freeze frame. This freeze frame annihilates you. You are carrying around a goofy ass two-bladed sword, just looking like mad out of shape. And I'm not body shaming him just to be a fucking dickhead. Like, if you do something, I expect you to be able to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to, like, if someone's like, I'm a gymnast, all right, and then they're just sitting there smoking like fucking cigarettes and with like, you know, they have no fucking like muscles in their forearms to hold their body up on the fucking rings. I'm like, well, I have to see some incredible shit right now. Otherwise, what in the fuck, what the fuck are you talking about gymnastics? Like, is this going to be, where's the revelation? This better be the best information, because I know I am not probably going to be seeing a physical demonstration of prowess anytime soon. And that's what I came for. It's a visual medium.
Not only does he say that he is encouraging people to not watch other certain content creators.
But today I want to talk to you guys about what makes good sword content and who you should and shouldn't listen to. So how do you, the viewer?
Oh man, dude, you got clip chimped. I'm pretty sure there's the end of that sentence is like to learn, like, you know what I mean? As far as like the accuracy of stuff. He never says don't listen to the channel. He just says your channel's not a good fucking source for learning how to do sword fighting in the real world, which is true. I'm going to say that so many, it's a fucking fact.
He doesn't mention who, but it's pretty clear he's talking about us and a couple of others. I'll talk more a bit about that.
I don't know who the couple of others are.
But not only does he say and encourage whoever watches him,
he's out of breath walking in circles carrying that thing.
He outright says that
he's a little
people who
choked.
do not practice the art should not talk about the art, meaning swordsmanship.
If you don't do the art, you cannot talk about how to do the art.
And to me,
so he doesn't say you can't talk about the art. He says you can't, if you don't do the art, you can't talk about how to do it, which is true. Anthony Fantano does not tell people how to make music in a technical aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'll include things like, I don't really like the amount of compression on here, but he's never like, hey, you need to retrace that through a fucking Korg and try to record your next, like, drum samples with, like, contact mics or something and try to put up, like, a, you know, like a shield so that you can protect from the reflected noise. He doesn't say all that shit because that's not what it is, but he does talk about the art. Shad, however, tries to demonstrate for use tactics. I've seen it happen in just the few videos I watched. I saw one where he tried to teach the stand-in for his prolific rapist in his book how to fight with foam swords, and it was I was like, I don't really know too much about this, but I've just got to say, weird that the swords are over everybody's head the entire time. I guess maybe it looks cool, we're teaching choreography, but you know, that is a foam sword. This is LARPing. This is LARPing.
To me, that is particularly aggressive.
Can I add one additional? This must be just that I'm acoustic or whatever the fuck. It is driving me fucking insane. Like, actually, I'm losing my mind that the crossguard on this one is curved and the crossguard on that one is straight. I don't know why that's my specific biggest gripe with this contraption he's carrying around, but it's actually like moderately infuriating because it's different. It's too close to be different like that. It's so
negative. So much so, why I feel it's necessary to make this response. So, the first thing that we really should discuss or address is how do we know that he's, in a large measure, talking about us here at Shadiversity, and why in a video like this, it's particularly disingenuous to not be upfront and honest about who you're referring to. There are two main issues.
My man made that whole intro is like, okay, you shouldn't be subtweeting, vague posting, immoral. my accent's not on today, guys. I'm so sorry.
With not being open about who is talking about in his video.
Who do you think you are?
Is that it
to be vague posting
in regards
on YouTube.
To the community
constantly making the I'm not own
come
face.
to his video and assume that he's talking about certain creators that he might not have actually been meaning or thinking about when he mentions certain criticisms. And that's
disingenuous charlatan.
It actually doesn't let the people who he might be referring to specifically to defend themselves. And I know
it's a video that you're not in.
For us specifically,
You're defending yourself right now.
In that video that are just flat out.
Also, you don't have. The thing is if it's not framed as an attack against you, you don't have to defend against it. You can just answer the thing that was said. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about you, and I'm attacking you, pretty fucking evidently. But like, it is not. I was not attacked. I'm just talking about you. You can just talk about it. Like, that's an attack. He was just talking about the actions that people do that are bad, that they can be easily applied to you, is your fault. But you could respond by, instead of addressing like, I just wish you weren't vague posting. Instead of doing that, you could just say, oh no, actually all the shit that I do is fucking sick and dope and cool, that he happened to say was not sick and dope and cool in that review. Because I'm not cringe. Don't let the internet know I'm cringe. It's a drill tweet. This whole video is a drill tweet, by the way.
Incorrect and false, which absolutely we should defend ourselves against those accusations if he was referring to us when he said them. And that's the second issue. By not being honest about who is talking about specifically, if people come to his video and assume that he's, say, talking about us, which many people have, by the way, they then will assume every single criticism in the video is referring to us, is a criticism against us, or anyone else that they assume he is referring to.
This is just the most... Was she tweeting about me? Was she fucking tweeting about me again? I don't know who else was wearing strappy yellow fucking pumps at the Dayglow ball. I don't know who else was wearing flowy satin, and she said flowy satin and pumps are not the look this year. I don't know who else she could be talking about. She said Gambesons are lame. Brigandine. Sellsword just looks at the camera and says the Brigandine comes off. It's fucking insane. I can't take you seriously. I don't care what he has to say during this entire part.
It's only now, when David is casting criticisms as to the legitimacy of certain tests, and propping up himself as being more trustworthy and authentic, that now it's necessary to point out the errors in that video.
This is the problem about trying to create what I believe is an elitist standard and an attempt at gatekeeping.
God, that was perfect. I got to the other part of I skipped to this part earlier. That is one of the most fire fucking sentences I've ever heard. An attempt to create an elitist standard. He just said he's saying he's better than me, mama. Mama, he was on the internet saying he was better than me. Yeah. Bro, like, some people are elite compared to you. Like, that just, can you not, can fucking righties in general just accept the fact that they're fucking, like, mid sometimes? Just on occasion, just accept the fact that you're mid. I do it all the time. I can't fucking dunk, and I should be able to. I'm 6'4". It's right there, but I can't dunk. Why? I've never worked on it. If anyone's just like, damn, dude, dunking's fucking cool, you know, you shouldn't really talk too much about dunking if you've never done it, because it's fucking fun. I'm not gonna be like, this is an elitist standard. You know what I mean? I'm just like, damn, that guy can fucking dunk. He can say whatever the fuck he wants. Let him brag. An elitist standard, and it's gatekeeping. First off, aren't you guys supposed to be fucking ass blasted about that? Whatever happened? Whatever happened to you guys fucking talking so much shit about the lefty pussies? Say what you're mad about. Just get to the fucking point. Like, are you skipping ahead? You ain't missing the video. He's fucking yapping, bro. Yapping. And it's not great yapping. Just admit, the fact that there's a dude in another Gambison on the other side of this camera watching him walk around with this taped together sword is one of the greatest acts of absurdity to have ever, like, Jean-Paul Sartre couldn't have fucking ever predicted that this shit was going to go down. All right. Like, this is just the most embarrassing moments for so many people's lives. Like, I'm glad they're getting paid for it, but you're complaining about people gatekeeping you out of a sport. You clearly are talking about it as like an instructor. You clearly can't do it. You have refused all of the opportunities to. They didn't even name you in the video, and you're vague posting back at them, whining at them. Sorry, you're whining at them about vague posting about you. I know I'm going off, but like
talking about it.
If you don't do the art, you cannot talk about how to do the art.
Okay.
Also, if you're going to try to make a fucking point ever, don't look like this on camera and then cut to a literal Assassin's Creed assassin level dude. Like, you know how fucked you're going to be if you ever try to pick a fight with Robin Swords? You better hope he never says anything. Because that dude is fucking snatched. That guy's at the fucking nines every day. Robin Swords is one of the hottest people on the internet, and he's also really good at sword fighting, apparently. Like, holy fuck. The competition is annihilating you, and you don't even do the fighting part with them. You're already taking an L. Just existing where cameras can catch the light coming back off your body. It's
if you set
fucking
that standard,
stunning.
That's you saying that people should not actually trust you or watch your content because, David, you are guilty of this as well, and we will share very clear, undeniable examples.
Damn, he said that. He said that real American.
He does this. Sellsword Art's video boils down to a number of key criticisms that I'm going to outline here, and then we'll address point by point. First, he feels that
how hot is that fucking Michelin Man outfit, by the way?
Sword-related content.
Also, this kills me. I know but like it's just a nitpick. But him wearing like gym shoes, like he does all of this, but then he's got like fucking sneakers on. I don't know why that drives me up the fucking wall, but I feel like you should just have knee-high leather boots. Like I would just like an excuse to wear like a big pirate boot. My man showed up somehow in the Reeboks. Like
in the framework of pop culture and anime can lead to misunderstandings and is
Chad is a Latter-day Saints strongest warrior.
He says couched in terms that... And
my man learned sword fighting at Brigham Young University.
I believe he's saying. And even though later in the video he says, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I actually think he's being dishonest when he says that because in other videos it's very clear that he feels sword-related content that is done in the framework of anime and pop culture, giant swords, stuff we do on Shadiversity a lot, hence why it's pretty clear he's talking about us, is depressing and lacks integrity.
When I look at the landscape of what's popular in swordsmanship on the internet, it's always, let's try and make a giant anime sword work. Does double-bladed swords work? Does reverse grip work? What about this weird technique? And it's depressing, honestly. And unfortunately, because I have to run a business and I have to get views, I have to make some content involving that kind of stuff. But I want to do it my way, with integrity.
So...
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a legitimate... He's not saying... Like, he's very clearly, even in the chimped clip, talking about the fucking content he has to make. He doesn't want to make the anime content because he wants to make fun stuff where he does sword fights. Like, that makes 100%... That just makes sense. That's like a fucking guy that's like a real passionate, like Olympic level boxer. And like every day someone's like, okay, but can you do the Yujiro Hanma thing? You know, like, could you nunchucks your son around like Yujiro Hanma? Like, could you do that? And then the guy's like, okay, well, I guess in today's video, we're going to try to nunchuck a grown adult man like Baki from Baki, as his dad, Yujiro Hanma, fucking nunchucked him around. Like, what the fuck? It could be irritating. And the thing is like a lot of this fucking content is pretty bottom of the barrel stuff, you know? Like, even the people that like Shadiversity, all of them that like you, Shad, if you ever pop through and watch this, they say they like that stuff because it's like popcorn content and they enjoyed it. And the second you talked about anything more serious, it was like a big turnoff for them. And they're like, "Whoa, fuck this guy." You know? It's just, it's nerd culture trash. Like it's just garbage content, but it's fine. You know what I mean? I eat Hot Pockets, okay? But I'm not going to try to convince somebody that like Hot Pockets is haute couture fucking, or not haute couture, fucking delicious food. Shout out the French for their gibberish fucking words. Like, I'm like that, like just accept the facts of the matter and stop being huffy.
He does have an issue with that type of content.
Anime, video games, pop culture, and all those things are not accurately representing swordsmanship. It's cool, it's fun, and it's enjoyable to watch, but that's not the way that swords would have actually been used. But because most popular content creators who do things about swords are courting that audience, they tend to couch things in terms of those anime techniques or things like that.
This is an odd thing to say because it's specifically referring to the popular sword content creators. Because one of the more dedicated things that we've done on Shadiversity is actually criticizing pop culture anime choreography for how unrealistic it is.
Well, I know you don't like the fucking extrapolating every single criticism out that he didn't name you on purpose is probably crazy when it doesn't apply to you because he just didn't say your name. Stunning. That thing that you never said I did, but you maybe I did other things that you complained about. Strange that I didn't do the thing that you didn't say I did. Strange. Incredible. Interesting. What the fuck?
My entire series, Fight Scene Autopsy, is dedicated to that.
You do one hit and they miss. Doesn't mean you have to return to normal. No, you can follow up with a thrust or another attack or any number of things. From this position, you can just keep on attacking. You don't need to just thrust and then move back. Like, there was nothing else I could have done. You got me. You got me, Galadriel. You got me.
Let alone the lengths of the realism analysis that we go into when reviewing any type of pop culture weapon or fight scene. So I can only assume he's not talking about us, even though he is referring to the more popular sword content creators. What really seems to be his criticism is that he finds it's unfortunate that there are more types of videos.
I mean, this is just the most dork shit ever. But if you just said I do dork shit, wouldn't that be fine? Like no one's, they're just saying like this isn't real. He's saying it's not real. He's saying it's not real. And that's like the biggest, it's true. It's just a fact. Like, I don't know why are you pissed about it? You make dork shit. You're a fucking dork.